Matt, you wrote an article yesterday. The title was, "You want to see bankers going to jail? Wish granted." Who's going to jail?
So, I've been getting some press releases from Sig TARP, the special investigator rather, for TARP, and there have been a bunch of press releases over the last couple of months, and this is ongoing, of folks at banks borrowing from banks that have cheated basically the TARP program, and now they're being put behind bars. Some of these stories are actually pretty funny. There was one guy who was a banker making sham loans to shell companies with the names "God Please Help Us," "God Please Help Investments," and "Please Help Lord Investments." I think these are, it's interesting when we think about the calls for bankers to go to jail, and we look at situations like this, where this is pretty obvious.
Clear.
Let's be. I'm no lawyer, but when you start seeing shell companies with names like "Please Help Lord Investments," this is obvious. The calls for bankers going to jail, though, more centered around the bigger banks, and maybe I'm not privy to what went on specifically inside these banks. Perhaps there were illegal activities going on. I don't know. But they haven't been prosecuted. At a Citigroup or Bank of America. But when we look at those banks, what we do see is we saw a lot of bungling. At Citigroup, it was just they took on the wrong businesses. They made terrible loans. They bought terrible investment products. At Bank of America, you had Ken Lewis, the CEO at the time, who was just an acquisition monster. And to be fair, Bank of America over its history was grown primarily by making a lot of acquisitions, some better than others. When I look back at Ken Lewis's history of acquisitions, a lot of them were overpriced, but then as we got into the financial crisis, they were just plain bad. The Countrywide acquisition, I'm curious who diligenced that, because when we look at how that's performed and what Countrywide was holding, I don't know what's going on there. So I started this article when I was writing it thinking about the subject of who's going to jail and who else could end up going to jail and that sort of thing. And the conclusion that I came to about midway through writing it was the idea that to investors, it doesn't end up mattering.
Right.
Whether it's illegal, or what the folks internally are doing, or whether it's just stupid, it often doesn't end up mattering. Again, I'll go back to Bank of America, and I mentioned this in the article, that although Bank of America survived, and you and I, we've been talking about Bank of America up 80% over the past year, it's still down about 75% from where it was pre-crisis. So you look at this stupidity, and from an investor's perspective, it doesn't matter much whether it was illegal. It's still costing them. So when we think about how we're approaching our investments, the people, it matters so much, because you can look at the numbers, and the numbers for Bank of America pre-crisis looked great because they were doing the right things, but you don't have a number that kind of calls out, this is a CEO that's at risk of doing something really stupid. And for all of the calls and concerns over Jamie Dimon's head, if you look at the way that he approached making crisis era acquisitions, and the experience that JP Morgan has had since acquiring Washington Mutual, which was deeply troubled, and Bear Stearns, which was deeply troubled.
Those were shrewd deals.
Right, they were. So who's running the company, who's setting the tone at the top, it makes a big difference.
Great.
All right, moving on.